Welcome to What Drives You. I'm Kevin Miller. In this episode, a therapist's attempt to find daily peace for herself and millions of others. Nedra Tawwab. She's the author of New York Times bestselling books, Drama Free, and also Set Boundaries, Find Peace. I've had her on the show to talk about the messages in both of those books. Boundaries specifically is an area I continue to study so much. Nedra is a licensed therapist, renowned relationship expert. She's appeared as an expert on the Red Table Talk, The Breakfast Club, Good Morning America, CBS This Morning, to name a few. She has a popular Instagram account. It's at Nedra Tawwab, Tawwab. And she's got over 1.8 million followers. And she's got other followers on other platforms as well. I don't know how many in total, but it's a lot. Recently, she spent a year posting what she called daily nuggets with the goal of uplifting, supporting, and guiding her audience deeper into themselves. But what she revealed was that her primary muse initially was just herself. These writings were what she needed to hear and hold on to for her own well-being and peace. Well, she created a book from the entire year. It's called Consider This, Reflections for Finding Peace. And the book has no chapters. It's more like a daily devotional for peace. As you'll hear at the top of our talk, I feel like the book is somewhat of an antidote for anxiety. It's how I experienced it. I started on the first page and just started pulling out topics that resonated with me. And we covered things such as being aware of the energy we feel from others and guarding ourselves against negative energy, the benefit of making new friends and questioning some of our own old friendships and relationships, paying attention to the signs when our peace is eroding. Nedra talked about an eye twitch she gets. It's a telltale sign for her. She talked about when it's appropriate to share about yourself, the difference between a grudge and a boundary. When is anxiety warranted? It was just an intriguing discussion, I felt, over some primary topics, again, that she's delivering to herself and others on finding their daily peace. I think you'll be inspired and equipped with this conversation. When I'm not having these conversations about human potential, I'm working directly with people on their human potential, especially their purpose. If you want to engage with me, go to kevinmiller.co and we'll talk. Here are a few sponsors next. They help make the show possible. Then drive with Nedra Tawwab Glover and me to consider what I called a therapist's attempt to find daily peace for herself and millions of others. It's from her new book, Consider This, Reflections for Finding Peace. Let's see what we can learn for ourselves today. Nedra, when I first got this book, well, first off, it was you, so it was a definite yes. But then the topic, I just appreciated it. And I really liked how you came in right from the beginning and said you wrote these, nuggets, not from some, amount of perfection or arrival, but you were speaking to yourself. These were the inspirations that you needed. And coming from that heart, I was all in. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Isn't that where all of our work come from inside of us, right?
Yes, although there's lots that speak to it as that they have arrived. And I really enjoy people who share that, hey, this came from a journey that I am and probably always will be on. Fair?
Yeah. I think most of us will be on the journey. And when we can admit that, we allow ourselves to be a work in progress and not this finished piece of art.
Yeah, fair. You also said that it was an intent, or you had an intent in this for yourself and to take others deeper, not just wider. And it just reminded me, it's a good reminder for me to how much new stuff am I taking in and how much stuff am I revisiting, and I need to over and over and over. I almost literally, you got me thinking about this. I thought maybe I should start a new practice, and it's like 1-to-1 or even 1-to-5, new stuff to old stuff. Can't go on to something new unless I have digested or at least integrated something into my life. And it's so exciting to go on to the next thing. And then I realized I really enjoyed that message. I don't know that I integrated anything. I don't know that I changed myself. So your concept or your perspective of taking us deeper spoke to me as well.
Yeah, I think we are always open to new stuff. Like we need some new closet system. we need a new car, we need a new this, we need more books, we need new podcasts to listen to. And there may be things that already exist that work that we haven't applied. There may be an idea or a YouTube video we need to rewatch. I love to reread old books because when I'm in a different part of my life, there are different parts of the books that I understand or that I see differently. So sometimes this idea of revisiting and going deeper in the material is an important concept.
Yeah, it's interesting as you said that. Generally with material items, I use them till they break. It's kind of, I try to stick with that, a car, computer, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I realize how tempted I am to just go on to the next exciting message. And again, as a good reminder, matter of fact, I need to go back. I would be well served to go back and read your book on boundaries. I had you on initially because of that book. And that's what I need to keep revisiting till I see more definite change.
Yes.
Yeah. Peace. I mean, the title of your book sitting behind me here, consider this: Reflections for Finding Peace. And that was really my perspective as I went into these nuggets, to these, I looked at them as like daily. I don't know how many there are, but I looked at them and thought, this is like a daily devotional. I need to read these to recenter myself. And so I started going through each page with the thought of what are the habits that erode and create peace for me, what I see in other people, but for myself. And that is, I kind of thought, I think I will actually, Nedra, just continue going on through these with the idea of a peace journal. People do gratitude journals, but if I want to nurture and create peace in my life, to go through these as reminders. And it's really how I came to looking at it, is what erodes and what creates. I just found it a great thread that led me through peace on every page.
You're teaching me some things. I don't think I looked at the title that deeply, but that is resonating with me.
Well, good, because that's where you kept me the whole time I've been studying it so far. Literally looking at, well, I looked up peace. So right off the bat, I looked at that as it's in your tagline. Well, and I got to admit too, your book is an anomaly. I've not seen a book that does not have chapters. It didn't have some big intro. It just started in on the nuggets. And I felt I enjoyed you maybe letting me, maybe like art. Was that fair? So like art that somebody puts up and says, you take from it what you will. So if that resonates with you, I took peace.
Yeah, I think that's what we take from most material. If we have, 10 people watch a movie, everybody's going to have a different response. They'll focus on a different character, a different underlying meaning of a movie. And I think it's the same way with books. We take what we need, even though we don't understand why we need it or what we're needing in that moment. It certainly comes out. I've been very surprised by some of the stuff I wrote, because I'll write a book, and then at the end, I'll edit it, and I have these notes of all the things to include, and I'll go look at my notes, and I'm like, I already wrote it. I already put it in there, because I'm thinking like, oh, this is such an important concept. But in, my typing away, I have already put the concept there because it was such a big one to me that I put it there. And my brain is not, digested that that's exactly what I needed in that moment to think of this concept. And here I am like, I don't know if I thought of this thing. And I go back and I'm like, I put it there. Wow. That's what I needed.
It's interesting because I wouldn't mind if I saw, I think you did this to some degree. I mean, there's always overlapping points, but as you're thinking through this on your daily posting, to see the ones that you come back to that probably each time has a little different flavor. And I had an old friend that he said, remember in your marketing, the department of redundancy department, and revisit those things. And again, we're back to that propensity to go to the new thing. And I probably need to hear the same thing over and over. I keep threatening to get, not threatening, but my kids want me to, and I agreed to a tattoo. And I want really just a whole running list on my forearms of reminders to me. I want all of them facing me and just where's Kevin? Remember this, Kevin. And yours would be, I think, cultivate peace. The Nedra tattoo. I'll get that. Put your name next to it.
Cultivate peace. That's a good tattoo idea. I don't have any tattoos yet, but that's a good one to maybe put on my wrist. Cultivate peace.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, I'll attribute it to you. So I actually looked up peace. I'm always interested in the first thing that comes up in the search engine because I figure that's the cultural interpretation, the cultural attachment. And it said freedom from disturbance, tranquility. And then the second one was a state or period in which there is no war or a war has ended. And I right away thought you're speaking. I felt I'll stick with my own interpretation at least. And I felt like you are helping quell the war inside of me. And we're in this age of anxiety. And again, I had so many thoughts towards this. I thought, okay, this book is, I said the thread of peace may be the antidote for anxiety. How's that set?
It works. I'll take it. Yeah, I love that because I think the opposite of peace is unrest. And isn't unrest anxiety? Like unrest within. Like that's like constantly moving motion. It is the opposite of what peace is. And hopefully this book delivers people to themselves in a very, I almost want to use the word empathetic and gracious way. Yeah.
Empathetic and gracious way towards self, others, or both?
Self.
Okay.
I don't think we're gracious enough toward ourselves. We can work up some empathy for other folks. And I'm not talking about gracious in the way of we excuse all our behaviors and our ego is in charge and we can do no wrong.
Yeah.
But gracious, and I don't have to be a perfectionist. I don't have to please everyone. Sometimes I will get it wrong. I am a work in progress. I don't have to know everything about everything. Maybe sometimes I am a little late. Maybe sometimes I'm a little loud. Maybe, just all of the things that make us human that we try to change and we wrestle with. And that's not to say that we shouldn't change anything about ourselves, but maybe the grace is allowing it to take some time, to not be this quick process that we allow ourselves to show up imperfectly until we can do a little better.
Okay, I interest myself with that. I have suffered lifetime of, until far too recently, of I hope that I gave empathy to others and grace to others, but not me. Not me. And I think it was arrogant, honestly. A lot of it was arrogance. I expected more from myself, which by proxy would mean, so I think I'm better than others and hold myself to a higher standard. You're a therapist, so you know those threads there, but I've suffered from that. So that holding maybe the duality of grace, but then I don't want to just, I am what I am either. I do want to grow and I do want to improve, but to do that and be okay with me today, I get it I've gotten it intellectually for a while, and I don't know where on the spectrum I am and taking it to heart and really embodying it. So it's more of an analytical, intellectual pursuit as I try to bring it in. I guess is that.
Yeah, but also accepting that you won't change all things. I have a friend who is chronically late. And the way that she recognizes this about herself is to tell you ahead of time, hey, I know we're supposed to meet up to go to the museum, but I'm going to be about an hour late, which allows you to reset your time, right? Because in my mind, I know this 2:00 is not actually 2:00. It's actually more like a 3:00. And so I have some wiggle room. I can sit in my car and scroll. I could go, walk around this area. I know that with you, that this is not a true measure of what time this thing will happen. So there are maybe we don't go to restaurants with reservations because you won't make it. So maybe we go to food halls because the food is already available. So, figuring out like how I show up in that relationship, and also allowing her to be more of herself and saying that this is not something you have to change. And I know everything in society tells us you have to be on time, but you seem like I think there are some things you're on time for, but getting out of the house can be challenging for some people, particularly people with ADHD, particularly people with anxiety, people with small children. Sometimes it is hard for people to get out of the house. So for me to say, without exception, you always have to be on time, how much grace am I offering to you?
Wow. Okay, I struggle to be late if it involves another person because I don't like it when somebody makes me wait. I don't enjoy waiting. I think patience is not real high on my scale. Yet, in my work, where the only person who suffers is myself, I pretty much am always late, to the point where my assistant, if she has something, she knows to give me the deadline, the drop dead deadline, a week ahead of when it really is. Now, I know that is, but just the concept of it's there and she's marked it red and says, this is it. I respond to it. And so I get it last minute, even though she realizes that she got it a week ahead of time. But the thing that I've wondered or continue to kind of grapple with or hold some tension with is I haven't changed with that. I've found a way to, in my terminology, I'm managing my dysfunction. Is that fair, or is that a negative perspective? Is that,
and your dysfunction is what?
In that case, I've got the ADHD label, and I tend to run late, even when I don't want to make somebody else wait. I'm usually getting there right at the last second. And so that time management, or I still tend to function to the pressure of the last minute, and I don't do idle time well. Even that I'm trying to change and to enjoy it. Like you said, go for a walk while you're waiting, or just sit, Kevin. Don't just do something. Sit there.
Take a book.
Yeah, I'll get better. But I think it's the question overall of managing kind of the perfectionist thing. Are we trying to arrive at this place of perfection and eradicate everything that is difficult or challenging with us? Or are we finding ways to manage it with whatever weird way that may be, like having your assistant set, unnecessary or set deadlines ahead of time?
Yeah, I think that's a way to manage some of those things we can't change about ourselves. I grew up in a home where my mother would set all of the clocks fast, and she was notorious for telling you a time that it was not. And so you would be like, oh my gosh, I got to get to school. And you get in the car and you realize, oh my gosh, I am 20 minutes early. So she would show up at work 30 minutes early. She shows up to places really early. That's just her thing. So it's interesting because she's like, we're going to be late. And I'm like, we will not. Like, I'm sure that you have fudged a clock or something to make sure that we are on time. So, I think there's an opposite to that, right? Like, there are some people who always have to be early or always have, there are some of us who will be right on time. There's some of us who will be early. There are some of us who will be late. How do we offer ourselves and others grace in being themselves is what I'm wondering. There are some things that we absolutely need to be on time for. There are some people in our life who can accommodate that, and some people who will not. When I'm rushing my kids out of the house, I think I need to wake them up earlier. This is not really their fault. This is my fault, because I really thought 45 minutes was enough time to get dressed. This is my fault, because maybe they need 50, because we're always 5 minutes late. Maybe they need 55 if we're 10 minutes. So it's, how do we work around this thing? Maybe I don't make them super punctual, but maybe I give them more of a window to start doing things on time, like your assistant is doing with you. This is a way to get this person to operate in this way. It's not about saying like, oh my gosh, you're always late. You need to arrive to stuff on time, but I need to work with this person. Time is of the essence, and this is the best way to get it done. That's mostly how, now we have a lot of adults being diagnosed with ADHD because, when I was in school, a lot of kids didn't have, they weren't diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
There were so many workarounds. For example, I was a kid who sat with their desk turned toward the wall because if you put me around other people, I'm talking the whole class. I finished my work, but I have a lot to say and these kids need to hear it. So the teacher's workaround was, hey, you sit here, you're isolated, you'll figure out how to do your work if you're by yourself. That was a great workaround. It wasn't this kid can't work in the classroom. It was, this is how we operate with a person who's easily distracted. Because now as an adult, I am easily distracted. I could be sitting here at my desk working and a little bird comes up and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that bird. Do I have a bird season, a bird feeder? Let me go put some bird season, a bird feeder. So, what do I do to prevent that? I pull the window shade down. I don't even see the birds.
Yeah.
So how do we work with ourselves?
Well, let me ask you this then. If I'm looking at peace as the barometer, what erodes my peace, which I could say, I guess we could marry it as I did, saying if peace is the antidote to anxiety, what's causing me anxiety and what's giving me, what am I getting anxiety from? What am I getting peace from? And even to look at those propensities like mine to do the last minute thing, is that work for me? Maybe so. Or is I'm doing it, it's a habit, and it keeps my anxiety high. My cortisol levels are high. I concern myself with that a lot these days and looking, okay, just because I've made it work, how is it? And that's the actual, it tends to the first story in your book, and you relate it to people that you witnessed an aunt and uncle, and talking, and him finally leaving, and you thought it was probably because he was worn out from this, maybe a negative conversation. And you're asking us to look at our energy in relation to, that may be people, but to everything. If I can look at that and go, peace is the goal. What is whatever I'm doing, judging or not, giving it grace, but is it creating peace, or is it allowing for anxiety? Is really where you have me looking at as a pulse. Does that track?
Yeah, when I think about that scenario, there were so many other people at that family gathering that could have absorbed that energy. There were so many opportunities to get away, to shift, and to stand there and listen to the dialogue. I would just, I'd be off talking or eating or something, and I just keep looking up like, oh, he's still there. He's still there. Just not being able to maneuver more toward our peace is a very interesting thing, that we will allow people to absorb our attention for far too long before we say, okay, this is enough. Because at some point, I'm sure he had to be the person to say, okay, right? But look how it took him, an hour plus to get to that point of saying, okay, could he have done that at 10 minutes? I think so.
Yeah. Maneuvering, you said maneuvering towards peace. Another way to look at this. How am I, or how am I not? And this comes to boundaries. That's the first book we had you on here with. And I thought for so long, majority of my life as a kid, as an adult, that I was valiant. Literally, I thought of myself that way in enduring a conversation like that. Where if I had the maturity to step back and going, is there anything productive at all happening? Probably not. And who am I serving? Am I serving the person that I'm being valiant with here as I grow this wall of bitterness bricks? And I'm definitely not serving myself. And I just wasn't open to that. That was the nice Christian thing to do. And yet I eroded. I was not maneuvering towards peace. Fair?
When you're a child and you're taught to listen to adults or to be respectful, because some of us adults feel like that's being respectful, to allow a person to drain us. Like, it's being respectful to them to let them get their point across, or it's respectful to them to listen. And I think adults use children in that way, like you mentioned, right? Because we're like, no, they have to listen to the adults. So if I want to drag on for an hour and a half or two, this kid has to be my audience, which is a very unfair concept. Because, my kids can find my YouTube videos and they're like, I don't know what you were talking about. So they don't even want to hear me for 60 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine, the conversations that I endured as a child by some adults who probably needed someone their own age to talk to, or they needed to explain some of the things they were saying in a pretty simple way.
It's funny to me that you say that. I have so many friends, so many people like you on the show, and it'll come up here and there where they're a little frustrated that their kids don't read their books, that their kid has not read their book or doesn't go see their sage wisdom. And that's the old biblical thing. Jesus was, whatever the paraphrase on the verse was, he was valued or honored everywhere except his hometown, and how that thread runs. But, to what you said though, having them sit there and listen to your monologue. I had a kid tell me, he says, Dad, back when we used to be really staunch, going to church all the time, he says, you kind of taught me to hate church. I thought, oh my gosh, how did I not know that? Because my parents, I felt that way too at his age. I came back at a later date, but I did too. I thought I'm doing the right thing. And he says, oh, you kind of trained me to not like it. And I just, that hit me kind of hard. And how am I training them up to respect others, but to respect themselves? And that wasn't, maybe that's it. Does that sound right? And I wasn't teaching them in that scenario to respect themselves and their own feelings.
Yeah. That when we allow kids to have choice, we are offering them maybe some freedom that we did not have, but that they need. I think about that with their diets, and, there's so many memes and jokes about, travel with your kids so they can eat chicken nuggets in Paris, right? It's like, I appreciate a person who eats the thing that tastes the best to them, right? Because so often the trying of new things also means that there's a lot of fails. So if we could stick with the thing that is really good all the time, French fries, chicken nuggets, consistency always the same, what a life. What a life to have, to be able to say, you know what, I don't need a lot of options. The things that I have already in my arsenal of foods, they work very well. Yeah. And for some parents, it's like, oh, this is so offensive. I've made them steak. I've made them scalloped potatoes. And it's like, we want the thing that works and that has worked. And in some area of our lives, we probably do the same thing, whether it's you always get Buicks, you always, you always go to the same nail salon, you always go to the same CVS or whatever it is. Like, we are creatures of habit. They get to have that opportunity as well. And that's the way that they choose their freedom at their young age, by eating the same thing.
I think it's wine, cheese, and olives. I could do that nonstop. Again, I'm going to keep this. There's so many, in your daily nuggets here in the book, so many paradigm shifts. For the most part, I kept coming back to peace. There were a few things, though, that you just got me thinking about that I hadn't thought about. And one, right at the beginning of the book, you're talking about new friends, or it was a song about no new friends. And your own questioning that. And then you kind of, if I could get it right, you were kind of in that camp and then realized, no, I think I want to, maybe it's a new friend a year. Is that right?
Yeah. I moved to Charlotte in 2009 from Detroit, and my friends in Detroit, I just thought they were the best thing ever. I mean, they are the best thing ever. The relationship was so deep and they were so historical. We've known each other since this point and we've been through this. And I just couldn't foresee inviting anybody else into that circle because I didn't know how to embrace them. I didn't even know how to bring them up to speed on who I was and all these things I liked and how, like creating that deepness. And so initially, I really suffered in my new city because I was like, no new friends. I have, enough friends 800 miles away, and I'll figure out how to make it work with them. I don't need new people until you get locked out your house. Until, you're sick and you need someone to bring you some soup. Until you have children and you need a sitter. So it is very useful for us to have lots of relationships. We may not get to know people in the same way that we know some of those old folks. It'll unfold over time. Yes, it's hard to make friends as adults, but it's also very needed because you're a different version of yourself. You may need a friend who likes Pilates because your old friends don't like that. You may need a friend who likes some new music artist that nobody else that listen to. So always invite people to fit whatever space you're in now, and you can still have the old people. We don't have to get rid of anyone. We can have a lot.
There's a music artist named Ben Rector. He has a song called, I don't know if it's the title, but the anthem of it is you can't make old friends. And I heard that and it was nostalgic, and I kind of lamented some of the old relationships that I don't have or we're not connected anymore, and valued the ones, and I've got old friends. I hadn't thought about it, Nedra, until you talking about it. And for some reason it sparked, though, the reality that I do have a good number of, new friends, not the long, as together as kids in high school, whatever, but new ones, whether that's 15 years or even the past couple years. And I have some. I don't have the history. I don't have that sweet nostalgia of, like Ben says, that their back parents' back porch, or their parents' back porch. It's sweet, and yet what you just said, I'm not the same person, and they aren't too. And some of them I just don't really. It's kind of sweet, but we don't resonate. I don't know if we ever did really. We were just, you're in school together or college together or in the military together or whatever it may be. And you make those. And now though, when I meet someone, sometimes I feel like we can resonate like that. We know ourselves more. We have changed. We are similar, and we're resonating at the same frequency now. We can come together, and it's a tremendous, maybe even in some ways deeper in a different way, but a deeper friendship. You just help me see that and feel like, oh my gosh, I want to honor that. Because at this point, I can't make any more old friends. Old friends are the old friends. But the new friends, there's something, I just felt you helped me honor it more.
When we're younger, our friendships are based on proximity. Like you said, we live in the same neighborhood. We go to the same school. We'll figure out how to put this Lego thing together. We'll figure out how to build a fort. It's not a lot of conversation around who we are as people. I don't remember any of those conversations in elementary school. It was more like, do you want to come outside and jump rope? Do you want to ride bikes? It wasn't a lot of conversation around who we were as people. We didn't know. So as we get older and we get to know ourselves better, as you mentioned, the relationships are based on mutual respect. It's based on our personalities, what we have in common, how we can be respectful towards one another. Like it's based on a whole different set of things. I don't care if the friend lives 300. I have friends in other cities. It doesn't even matter if you can come on my porch every day and play. Because so much of it is based on conversation, connection, and showing up for each other. And I think you can do that from most places. You don't have to come to my porch anymore. But at one point, that was very important to me in friendships.
I do, as you said, I have come to value, maybe revalue the face-to-face. So many people, I'm so grateful to do Zoom calls or FaceTime calls, and it keeps us connected. Man, it's just, I don't know how to emulate the same energy and connection as face-to-face, as friends that I have right here in my neighborhood, in my town, that we can, be there to help with someone. My buddy who says, oh my gosh, I just got a flat tire and I don't know how to fix it. All right, man, I'm there. That's That's special. There's so many things you've just, I don't know. It was like a book of reminders, like bringing me back to things, or that maybe it was just a spirit that I was in, paying attention to peace. And it's so funny. I'm on page 5 at this point, Nedra. So folks listening, if you've gotten some value, page 5 of a lot of pages. So go get the book. You can do this all year. And you talked about, it was kind of the thing I talked about, doing things last minute, that your propensity to do that. And yet you realized, maybe it was in school, turning in things or whatever, an eye twitch. So it's that story. You realize an eye twitch. And in my paraphrasing, it was, you noticed something that was not producing peace. It was producing, I don't know if you said that, but it's producing anxiety. But what resonated with me was you paid attention to a signal. You didn't ignore it. You didn't just, grab a glass of wine or even go meditate. Great thing to go meditate or whatever. But you just recognize that this is not benign. It's not happening for no reason. It's happening every time I do this last minute thing. And I concern myself with looking at that as it's something that's not right, that's probably going to manifest down the road. And you're going to have a panic attack, or you're going to grow some physiological, what's that statement? The physiological expression of mental pain. That's not the way it goes, but yeah, that concept.
I understand it. And I think the listeners will as well. We've got
it. Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like we're in an age where it's expected to, and sometimes even applauded, to ignore the signals. That's what I took from that message.
I have a client who is a former athlete, and they talk about how when you're an athlete, like, you are constantly taught to ignore the signals of pain. If you get an ankle sprain, you wrap it up and you keep playing. If you get this, you keep going. And that has manifested in adulthood as not going to the doctor when you feel that ache in your body, ignoring that eye twitch, ignoring when you're overloading your schedule to the point of exhaustion, because you've built this like athlete's mentality of just push through, push through, push through. Like, your ankle isn't really broken. There's nothing wrong with your knee. That bone's sticking out. They can fix it later. And we applaud people for that. When athletes get hurt and they get back up and play, it's like, yeah. It's like, yes, keep going. Who cares if your shoulder's broke? It's like, oh my gosh. We need to care. We need to care when our body is indicating a stop or slow down. And a break, a tear, a twitch, a rash, a headache, a chronic stomach aches, all of these things is our body's way of saying, please help me. And if you don't help me now, I'll give you a heart issue.
Yeah.
If you don't help me now, we might have a stroke. If you don't help me now, I'll increase your blood pressure. If you don't help me now, I know what to do. I'll create a really big problem for you, because I'm letting you know with these little bursts of things that something is happening. I told my husband last week, when I get less than 6.5 hours of sleep, and I know this because I have a ring that tracks my sleep. When I get less than 6.5 hours of sleep, I have cold-like symptoms. I'm not joking. The next day, my nose is running. I'm sneezing. I'm tired. I'm like, do I have a fever? I'm checking my temperature. And it's always after a bad night of sleep, or just staying up too late and getting up too early, or some combination of messing my sleep up. And that next night when I sleep well, I'm like, I drank all that echinacea tea for nothing. I was sleepy.
Yeah.
I was sleepy. My body was saying, take a nap. It was not saying that you have a cold, but it's saying that I'm trying to alert you to something that we need. And if you continue to ignore me, I'll show you something else.
That analogy of an athlete. So I was a pro cyclist for a big part of my life. And yeah, not only was the teaching to ignore it, but you're right, it was applauded. And we were even, I was going to say taught, I don't know if that's fair, but a lot of times you'd almost harness it so that injury or that anger or that problem, you let that motivate you and you come back and you win that race. And it's fuel. And I took that into life and relationships, and they didn't turn out so well. I didn't end up on any winners podiums with that idea. It's things that are good for, and the Olympics, or if you're literally on a battlefield at war, maybe that's great to keep yourself alive or keep others alive. But I feel like, I know this is a sexist stereotype, but I tend to think historically women have been in that with kids. You don't worry about your shattered leg. That kid needs to be nursed. That kid needs to be taken care of. You wrap yourself around that kid, keep it warm, even if you get frostbite. And I guess having a young kid is somewhat similar to war sometimes, but still, to take that then and take it out here, that's what I did. And I feel like, so many of us have done, and not paying attention to the signals. I mean, this is, it gets into your book, but it's still fairly new to me to be aware and step back and go, wait a minute, man, my heart, I've got wearable devices I'm paying attention to for sleep and whatnot. And when my sleep score, my body score are bad and my heart rate's up, I just can't think creatively. And I have a creative job. That's all I do is creative. And I might as well just go back to bed if it's that bad. But paying attention to the signals, I hope we'll see that shift, just like sleep. I mean, you remember back in the day when people, the CEO is talking about the power 4-hour night sleep or 3-hour night sleep and keep charging. And now, thank God, I feel like we've seen that shift. I hear a lot of people, me included, bragging about 8 hours or so of sleep. I'd love to see that happen it's kind of like being sensitive. I don't want to be insensitive. I'm going to kill myself. I want to be more and more sensitive, but that's not the cultural construct, especially for guys, I feel like. But you're helping change my paradigm.
Yeah, I saw something last week, some research around women needing more sleep than men because of our hormones. So even that is something to pay attention to for folks who are like, I'll go to bed with my partner goes to bed. I'll go to bed with my husband goes to bed. You may need to go to bed a little earlier. Yeah. Because your body is doing a lot of recharging and shifting. And earlier could be 10 minutes. It could be 20 minutes. It could be 30 minutes. And then paying attention to what we uniquely need. Some people need 9 hours. Some people need 8. Some people need 7. I would say under 7 is probably not ideal for most of us. But, we all need different things. And so figuring out what your unique rhythm is, what your schedule needs to look like, how many challenging people you can talk to in a particular day.
Yeah. I'm thinking you got me about sleep. I mean, I don't want a pilot who's piloting my plane or a surgeon who's working on me to brag about 3 hours night sleep. I'll take another flight. Thanks. But we tend to do that and think that we're going to get good work out of us. You have a nugget here that I really thought through, Nedra. And it was, I took it, actually, I combined 2 of yours. They were just pages apart. And to me, I brought them together. And the initial one was about sharing about yourself and somewhat being sensitive to who you share with. And I looked at that, and granted that there's sometimes when we know there's people in our lives we just don't need to share X with. We don't have a healthy enough relationship, or you don't think that they have the maturity or whatnot. But I got to thinking about motive, something else that you said in that piece, to thinking about the motive. Why am I sharing about myself? Is it because what do I need? Am I sharing it to share my peace? PEACE, to share my peace or to give them peace? Or am I sharing it because I'm lacking some and I'm needing attention or affirmation? And you talked about that we are humans. We do, I don't know the word you use, we do appreciate those things. I've just continued to grapple with that concept of, do I like affirmation? Absolutely. Do I like applause? Yep. Do I like attention? Yeah. Should I need it? Or should it come from me internally in regards to my own self-worth? I just wanted your thoughts.
Should I need it? I think we will need it. I don't know if there's a should that has to be applied to this. We do want to impress people. We want people to be happy for us. I mean, it starts in childhood. It's like, look, I got an A. Oh my gosh, look at me do this cartwheel. Look at me. I can jump up and hit this thing. Like, there is something about wanting that praise and admiration. And I don't think it's ego driven. It is, we want to be seen. It is our way of being seen by people sometimes, our sharing. Now, as we mature and we get older in age, yeah, we can ask ourselves the question of, why am I sharing? But I don't think the root of that is to monopolize a conversation or only say great things about myself, because the sharing needs to be more than the positive things. There are so many people who are going through things and nobody around them knows. When we hear about, some of these celebrity incidents, it's like nobody knew because they didn't share. And those are things that need to be shared, that I'm really struggling with my mental health and I need somebody to talk to. Do you have a program for me, a person I could talk to? Here's the thing that's going on. We need that. We want people to share. So it's not always about people are trying to, show everyone their accomplishments. But even with the accomplishments we may have some other things like, oh my gosh, yes, I just released a book and it's been very hard for me to show up in both spaces, both at home and at work. And I'm really trying to figure out how to be great at both. That's important to be shared too. So it's not just highlighting all of our accomplishments. I mean, we would be doing resume conversations. We don't want to do that. We want authentic sharing of what's happening, how we feel about things. When people come to us and say, how are you feeling today? I hope we're not saying, well, I released a book. Well, that's not a feeling. That's an accomplishment. But how are you feeling today? Are you excited? And then we could talk about being excited. Maybe we feel a bit nervous. Maybe we feel a bit anxious. Those are important things to share when we're talking to other people, our feelings about the things that are happening in our life.
I interest myself with that resume conversations. I've never heard that term. I had one of those I received one about a week ago, and it really surprised me from the person it came from. And I wondered why they had the need to do that with me. And you said ego driven. I think what I'm pondering is insecurity driven. Am I sharing it to share something good, or am I sharing it help me with that? Because I guess what you're saying, what I have not done in my life is, I've had more of the resume conversations where I share the good things, the Instagram reel, and I didn't share the insecurities, but to share because of my insecurity, I guess. But you're saying, and what I'm learning to do is share that I'm insecure, to be honest with the feeling that I am, or any emotion actually, is any negative emotion, especially primarily, has been hard. So to share that, it's interesting. Doing that here on the show has probably gotten me more success with the show than before, when I was just the host and doing the success conversations. So it helps. Maybe it just comes down to being aware of, I want to be aware. What is my motive of that? Am I just coming from a need, from an insecurity, and I'm just trying to get affirmation, somebody build me up because I'm struggling with my self-worth? Or do I see a productive aspect of it? Is that fair?
Or am I trying to impress you?
Yeah.
Why is this person, if I'm trying to impress a person, I would wonder, why am I trying to impress them? Why does their opinion of me matter? Because sometimes, I think, my kids are constantly trying to impress me. They're constantly, I got an A on this thing. This was my test score on this thing, because they're like, I want to make you feel proud. And I appreciate that. And I have to let them know that I want them to tell me everything. So the good and the bad, even when the boy kiss your hand and I don't like when little boys kiss you, I want to know that too. Or, like I want to know all the things, not just the great things, but I want to know all the things about you. I don't want you to feel like we have to have resume conversations only. I want you to talk about who you are as a person. That's what I want our relationship to be about. And I've noticed most of the relationships that I'm developing with people now, they are very honest conversations. They say things in a way that just feels so authentic that it's like, I want to be around this person more. I've not heard anybody say, yeah, I've been married 15 years, but this is actually pretty hard. And here's why. It's like, ooh, the honesty. I like this person because we're so used to people, having this beautiful curated experience of everything. I have the best husband. I have the best house. Instead of, yes, this is a wonderful car and these payments.
Mm-hmm.
I would have chosen a different vehicle because the maintenance, like that level of honesty sometimes, it really makes me feel more connected to a person because we could meet a person and be like, oh my gosh, their house, their car, they this, to this. But when they're honest about what that is, it's like, wow. I met a woman who is working on her first novel. And I was telling her how last year, after I wrote Drama Free, I developed carpal tunnel. I said, after I signed all those books, because I went on a book tour, I had carpal tunnel. I was going to the chiropractor for about 5 months. I was wearing a brace. I was doing these exercises because my wrist, noticing the signs. When I started typing this book, my arm was tingling. I thought I was having a stroke. I said, oh my gosh, what is happening? I can't even, my right arm. I'm like, what is going on? Like, my arm is tingling. It feels numb. Like, I don't know what's happening. I went to the chiropractor and he said, what did you do differently? I'm like, I don't know. He said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm an author. He said, you've been signing books? I said, oh my gosh, he's figured it out. I signed thousands of books. And he was like, your arm is not used to that rotation. And so you introduced the activity without any lead up and you did it habitually for weeks and weeks and weeks. And your body did not like that. So we'll have to do some things different to get you, to this place. And so I'm going back to the story. So I was telling this new author. And so she said to me, well, I hope I get carpal tunnel when my book comes out.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, no doubt.
I said, I hope you do too. I'm telling you, yes, this was a great book, New York Times bestseller, but I did develop carpal tunnel.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get your signature and I'll have a stamp made and send it to you for this next tour.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, at least I know what exercises to do to practice that. But sometimes when we don't know, like if someone could have just told me, like, signing a lot of books is, like that bit of information, that level of vulnerability instead of I'm signing books and it's great. It's like, why didn't anybody tell me?
Yeah. Yeah. As you talked there and shared, thank you. I'm sitting here thinking, I think I tend to be too analytical or too evaluating of conversations. I'm looking for them to be productive. I mean, I don't enjoy just kind of chit chat talking about the sports or weather. And I see some people who have great levels of peace who do that a lot. So maybe I should, but it just hasn't been something I've enjoyed. And that I spend too much time trying to look at the productivity. Well, you're a therapist, maybe like a therapist would tend to. And I haven't really thought about or given value to connecting. Now, not that I don't want to, but that hasn't been a motive I've been looking for. To go, I might connect by just sharing that I shared an experience. Even in the aspect, Nedra, of I'm thinking now about my propensity to ask questions, which I like. I appreciate that from other people as opposed to sitting there and talking about yourself. And we know that concept. But if all I do is ask questions and I walk away, I think sometimes I might have even prided myself in that. I just had an hour conversation and I let them talk about themselves and it spurred them on. I mean, I ask questions for a living, that's great, but I don't know that we connected. And I haven't really thought about that till now, to think about how to talk just to connect. Don't evaluate it for productivity, even though that still is an aspect of it. But I think I've probably missed out. Thoughts?
The uncle that I wrote about earlier with the hat, he is a hat wearer. So he likes to wear an interesting hat, or he'll wear an interesting button, or just something. And I asked him one time, why do you wear these hats, or why do you wear these things? He said it's a conversation piece. So it's a way to connect with people, because people will say, oh, I like your hat, or oh, look at that button. And so it just starts these conversations with strangers.
Yeah.
And that's his way of connecting, that if I have this hat on and it's an interesting hat, people will talk to me. It's like, wow, that is a wonderful way to invite conversation. And you're looking like, oh my gosh, I would not like that.
I'm not much for wanting attention when I'm out, but maybe that's what I should do, Nedra. There's our tattoo. We're both going to get neck tattoos, and that'll be the conversation starter.
Yeah, sure.
You, in a story in one of your nuggets, you talked about the difference between holding a grudge and holding a boundary. And again, when you were on my show, I think this is the third time now. The first time with what year did your book come out on boundaries?
Oh, 2021.
Okay, so back then, so 3 years ago or so. And I had you on because I knew that I had actually been confronted some about my lack of boundaries. And I got it intellectually. I understood. I resonated, but again, different than taking it to heart. I've progressed, I think, a lot, but I don't know if on the spectrum from 1 to 10, if I'm now a strong 3 or if I'm better. I don't know. I still feel rookie with it. So you looking at that and saying the difference, or talking to the difference between holding a grudge and holding a boundary, was so helpful just to think about, because as I look, is this a boundary time or is it not? To think about my motive. And as you said, I'm paraphrasing, am I trying to teach I think you did say this or write this. Am I trying to teach someone a lesson or keep myself safe in the relationship? And it was really that first statement that I thought, am I doing this, holding the boundary, because I'm pissed? Because I want them to feel the pain of that, teach them a lesson? Or am I doing this to protect our relationship? Or maybe I don't care dramatically about the relationship. I'm just going to protect myself. But it brought me back to looking at the motive. Is it peace in this thread that we're talking about? Is it anger? And do I need to respect? Well, I guess respect them, or, respect myself by understanding the motive. That was helpful to me, is what I'm saying. Even that, just looking at what is the motive for the boundary, because I still find myself questioning it quite a bit. If it's productive, if it's best. Thoughts?
Why am I even doing that?
Yeah.
Do I have a real reason to do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we do hold grudges and we don't recognize that if we don't ask ourselves, am I trying to punish them? Because sometimes we're being punitive.
Punitive, that's good.
We really are. It's not really a boundary. We just want them to hurt as much as we hurt, or as much as they hurt us. And so we create a rule that will hurt them.
I'm thinking punitive. Is this respectful to myself and them, or is it punitive? Even that, good barometer to look at it. Anxiety, you talked about. And again, I kept looking at this book as an antidote to anxiety, to looking at peace. And you ask, in essence, is it, or I paraphrased, looking at my anxiety at the feeling. Sometimes, Nedra, I can even look at my watch, look at my heart rate, and see that it's elevated and question why. And look, I don't have a tiger chasing me. I'm not in any physical mortal danger. Why am I in physical risk? If not, is it just a threat to my identity, just a threat to my ideas? And if so, I should be able to come down on that. How do you look at measuring or discerning our anxiety? Is it fair to say, is it really warranted or not? Because on the other side, then you can tend to minimize, which I'm a minimizer with that. So I don't want to fall into that camp. Maybe that's it. The tension between, auditing it and whether it's reasonable. Is that a fair way to look at it? Or do you want to honor the anxiety regardless?
Well, anxiety has a place. Anxiety is a feeling that can let us know when we're in danger. It can let us know when we are truly unsafe, when there is a problem happening. The challenge is that it happens a lot in situations where we're very safe. Nothing bad is happening. And we have to be able to work ourselves through that anxiety to deal with certain situations. I think when you talk about setting boundaries, there's a lot of anxiety for people around that. Like, if I say this thing, here comes the anxiety. They're not going to talk to me anymore. They're going to be mad. They're going to be upset with me. They will, all of these things that have not happened. And sometimes things we've never seen them do with anyone. So, the anxiety, yes, it's there, but it's like, is there a bear in the room? Or am I thinking that a bear would walk in the room if I said this thing or did this thing?
Yeah.
It's the, exposure therapy is one of the ways that we treat specific phobias. So if you have a fear of trains, or you have a fear of clowns, or you have a fear of airplanes or bridges, and all of these very snakes and all these very unique things, your brain is going through a process of, I'm going to die. This thing is going to hurt me. For most people who experience these things, it's not true. There is research to support that this is not the case in most of those situations. Yes, snakes can kill. Do they always just slither up to people and kill them? Absolutely not. That's not the case. So how do we work ourselves through some of these anxieties that the bridge is going to tumble, that the plane is going to fall out of the sky? We have to expose ourselves to it. We have to get on the plane at some point to get over the fear of flying.
Yeah.
We don't have to hold a snake, but maybe we need to be in the presence of one without screaming. Now, the fear of snakes, I never even see snakes, so I don't know. But a bridge, we might have to drive across one to get over that fear of being on bridges. But we can't manage the anxiety without exposing ourselves to the anxiety producing thing. So whatever that is in your life, a big conversation, a snake, a plane, a dog, or whatever it is, if you want to get to the other side of that, you will have to face it. I've heard of people who, I don't drive on the expressway because I'm afraid. And so they have to take the long route to everything because they're so afraid to drive on the expressway because that's where the accidents happen, right?
Yeah.
Or people, I'm sure you've heard all sorts of things, as I have as well. But is the anxiety because there is a big, scary thing that is possible, or are we creating a scenario where it could happen? There's a difference with anxiety between possibility and probability. Lots of things are possible. Our brain can dream up so many things. That's how we have all of these wonderful series and TV shows about things that we may never experience in this lifetime. Right? Like all of these, the post-zombie apocalypse, our brains can dream up so many things. It doesn't mean that those things are real.
Possible.
I have very vivid dreams sometimes, and my husband is like, you got to stop watching TV. I told him last week, I had a dream I was being attacked by like a rhino. He's like, what?
Not too much probability.
Not too much probability. I don't think I'll ever encounter a rhino. Like, I don't think so. I wasn't scared in the dream, but I was like, that's just what happened. I was in a crowd, and then it just jumped up, and I woke up. And I was like, oh my gosh. But it's interesting. But things like that make me think of, what is the rhino? Because it's not actually a rhino, right? Yeah. It's like, what is the rhino in my life? What is the thing that's like, it could happen? Because that's the response the rhino wanted. That's the anxiety. So
Yeah.
even when we have dreams like that, that is a manifestation of our anxiety, the falling, the dying, the being shot, the this, the that. It's like our anxiety is trying to say, I need a place even when I don't have a place.
Yeah.
So we have to make ourselves feel safe. We have to use a lot of self-talk. We have to do the practice of doing some things. And then there are some times where it's like, this is a snake and I need to run, right?
Yeah.
But we need to make sure we're in a situation where there is actually a snake and we need to run.
I don't often remember dreams. I had one last night and I was skydiving, which I've never done.
Mm-hmm.
And there were power lines and the rope between me and my whatever canopy was really, really long, 100 feet. I thought there's no way we can ignore these or we can bypass them. But like you said, I wasn't super scared, but it was just, I woke up thinking about what the hell did that come from? And it's interesting. Yeah. I live at 9,000 feet where there's no snakes either. I'm grateful for that. Nor are there clowns. So I'm good with.
Yeah, I just wonder with dreams like that. Like when clients give me those dreams, I often think about like, what haven't you given yourself enough credit for getting through? Because that dream to me sounds like there was this challenge and you saw a way out of it. Despite what the challenge was, these electrical ropes, this thing, this, that, like our consciousness can come out in our dreams. Like, it's like, I want you to know how good you are at problem solving. Then what in my life am I wondering about not being able to face that I can actually face?
Okay. Well, thank you. Send me an invoice. A couple other things. Again, these are things that it just so resonated with me. You talked about emotional neglect in one of your pieces, which I have. It's still hard for me to admit that, especially if my parents hear this show. And we talked about it a little bit, and they were loving, incredible, gracious people that didn't have a whole lot of emotional intelligence. It wasn't allowed or touched on in their lives at all, and they really felt like they were being good and going after positive thinking, and negatives were just bad things that we needed to work out. They weren't strict about it or unkind, but I just embraced, the good stuff, gives joy, good performance gets accolades. And I did that. And then was much later by therapists brought to emotional neglect. And as time goes on, I wonder, actually, when I read it, I thought, just ballpark your thoughts. In the population, how many people would you say, and again, I know it's a spectrum of an emotional neglect, but how many of them are, they're over far enough that it's an issue?
Yeah, lots of us were emotionally neglected. And I think the important thing here, not to say all parents were emotionally, I don't want to go there with it, because sometimes our parents didn't have the tools.
Yeah.
They may not have known about the importance of caring for emotions. We only know to take care of what's important when it's deemed as important. We didn't even know kids couldn't have peanut butter before the age of 1 until they couldn't have peanut butter before the age of 1. We didn't know that we couldn't give pregnant women x-rays until babies start having deformities. So, it's one of these things that we learn as we go. And some of our parents did not know that that's the tool that they needed for us. What they thought we might have needed was independence, freedom, a safe home, just things like that. They may have not. I should ask him about that feeling he just mentioned. They may not have known. So yeah, if your parents are listening, I don't want them to feel punished for the things they didn't know, because guess what? I'm doing something that I probably, I think is a great idea, but maybe in the future it won't be. Like, I don't know. I'm doing the best I can with the tools that I have for now. And in 30 years, when my kids become parents, there's going to be something that I shouldn't have used. I shouldn't have gave them apples, because apples, I don't know. I don't know the thing, but it could be something. So yes, many of us were, emotionally neglected. And I think the important thing to do today is to stop it.
Yeah.
Now that we're aware of it, how are we emotionally neglecting ourselves? How are we emotionally neglecting our friends, our family members, our children, our partner? This is the important piece. I think sometimes we get so caught up in, oh, I was emotionally neglected. You're still doing it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not showing up for yourself. You're still not asking for what you need. You know that you now have this need. What do you do with that information now? So yes, this happened to, lots of people. Is not an excuse for parents. Some parents are, some of our parents are still doing it. As an adult and as we mature in our relationships with our parents, it is now our job to let them know how we need to be emotionally cared for. We can bring them up to task on that. I know that you didn't have that knowledge in 1981, but in 2024, here are 5 books, Mom. Here's some YouTube videos. So this is what I would like you to do. These are the questions that I'd like you to ask me because I want a deeper relationship with you.
Well, I still have a lot to learn. I think I'm doing better. I've brought that into my family, to my kids, especially. Again, it's been head knowledge, and I think I don't know, somewhere on the spectrum of actually embodying that more. So I was just grateful that you hit on it. And thinking of kids, I kind of wanted to anchor our talk together with it was one of your nuggets, and you said nurture yourself as you would a small child.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with this thread of peace, I'm looking at that. That was I'm forever grateful for some mentoring that my wife and I got as we became parents. And it was along the lines of, you can still give consequences to your kids, boundaries in essence. You can do that in peace in essence. And I got it. And we did it with them. And I kept it isolated only to that. And you talked and you said, being, I think you said in it, giving peace, being gentle and patient and present and warm. I mean, I can be a peaceful person, but it doesn't mean I'm a monk on a mountaintop who's unattached to everything, disassociated with things, no problems. I don't deal with stuff and everything's okay. I'm a parent and sometimes things are not okay. I'm a spouse and a friend and sometimes things aren't okay, or I do things that are not okay. And yet to experience, which I have, somebody who will have a boundary with me or challenge me and be at peace. Oh my gosh, I can take it so much as opposed to the person who's giving it without peace. And so that's where I was grappling with as I took notes on what you wrote, that to me, I was marrying it with your message on boundaries, that I can have boundaries with great peace. I can be that guy. The boundaries doesn't mean that I am rigid or what would be the opposite, just allowing everything.
Porous. Yeah.
Porous.
You're
okay.
letting everything in.
Yeah, that I can have those, but be at peace. That it's not the issue so much, or whether or not there's a boundary or a consequence. It's me I want to retain peace, and I can do that by still having that, like with a kid, that I can nurture them or myself. It was just a good analogy as a kid, even when I need to. Yeah, please.
I think of this one. I don't know how old your kids are, but I can remember when I had newborns and there was a bedtime routine. There was, a bath, and we moisturized their skin. We would give them a little baby massage. I mean, just the preparing of the bed for them was just such a gentle process that I've learned to have with myself. Because I deserve that level of love and care, and I don't have to have another adult give it to me, but I should also give myself a little bedtime routine. I remember when my kids were, learning to eat food, and I would hand make their baby food. I'd, boil the sweet potatoes and boil the peas and puree them and put them in the. What am I making myself for lunch today?
Hot Pockets.
Look at all that nutrition and love and care. No, don't you smoke around my baby. Don't you do this around my baby. And here I am putting myself and putting things into my body and being around situations and, just all the things we do. If you smoke, that's fine. But, just thinking, being intentional about what we allow. There are certain decibels. If you see little kids at concerts, they have on headphones. What makes you think that you should listen to music at any volume? Because I've been at some concerts like, this is too loud.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So just being mindful of how you nurture yourself as an adult. Yeah. And how so many of your needs still matter. And there is nobody else. Yeah, hopefully babies had a parent who, did all this stuff. But these are things that we now have to take ownership of and do for ourselves. We have to prepare our own food. We have to make sure that we're not listening to music too loud so it doesn't bother our ears. We have to make sure that we are massaged before bed. We have to rub our legs. We might have to make sure we have a sound machine. We may, all of those tender needs don't disappear. We just stop attending to them because nobody else is doing it for us. But how do we continue to nurture ourselves as we would a small child? The love and care that you give to a kid, even sometimes the language that you might use around, like with myself. Because I would talk to a kid like that. I'd be like, oh no, buddy, you did a great job and blah, blah, blah. And here I am calling myself stupid. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't call a kid stupid. When one of my kids called the other, my daughter will say, oh, stupid. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here I am saying, stupid, why you do that?
Yeah.
Being very kind. I'm treating myself like I would a small child sometimes. I am treating myself like mean criminal person sometimes. And I deserve more love and care than that. We all do.
Yeah. I think the concept, it stuck out to me because I took the concept from a performance method, which has some relevance, but I like the thought of nurturing a child better. I took it from I was a pro athlete. You look at pro athletes and man, you take care of yourself or you're taken care of. You're taken care of and make sure you get your sleep, you make sure you get nutritious food, make sure you're not injured. You do that. And then the day comes and you retire. We see that all the time on TV, the ex NFL player, the ex NBA or whatever. And not all the time, but I interest myself with that so often they just let themselves go. It's like, well, there's nothing to fight for now. There's no, I got the ring. I was on the podium, whatever. And we let ourselves go. And that dawned on me at some point. I thought, man, I actually thought of like racehorses, Kentucky Derby and how they're taken care of. I'm treating myself like a mule where it doesn't help. So I've thought of it there, but some reason it turned it gave me more depth to it to think about a small child because I've had a lot of kids and how we treat them, how I always treat my kids with a level of respect that I didn't give to myself.
Mm-hmm. I love what you said about athletes, that they had all of these things done for them and there should likely be a continuation of doing those things for yourselves. You are now your nutritionist. You are now your sleep coach. You are now your rest partner. Yeah. You are now your advocate. Like there has to be some handing over of the baton, not in real life, but at least mentally. We have to pass that baton back to ourselves and say, I can do this now. I can make sure that this thing is tended to.
Nedra, we could be done in a month or so if I went through every one, but I'll do those on my own. I did. I just so appreciated the thread, and for myself taking it through the piece. Am I creating peace or am I eroding peace? And I looked at those vignettes. I did think of it like a daily, I don't know that you did it for this, but like a daily journal entry to pull it up, read one, and then go with any of my thoughts. But I think the thread of peace, I'm just going to honor that it resonated. So I just thank you. It's it feels like we're in a time we need we need peace inspiration. We need antidotes for the anxiety out there. And that's what I found in your book. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You there? Yeah,
Yes.
The things I'm on Riverside and it's not letting me stop the recording. Maybe it did. What's it show on your side? Does it show that it's uploading?
It is. It's at 73%.
Okay, something's weird on my side because I can't stop the recording. So we're still recording. We can leave this, but will you leave your
screen up?
Yeah,
Okay.
till it uploads. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And the book just came out, right? I'm like a week late.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how I did. Maybe my team already has it scheduled right away, but if not, I'll see if we can bump something and put it up next. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Maybe they do. I just didn't realize I was after it came out. So
it's fine.
Hey, thank you. Really. It was just felt like a deep breath to read. I was reading it out on my back deck and it's just a gift. Thanks for being on here for the third time as well.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me back.
Well, next book, we'll have you back again.
Okay.
All right. Nedra, thank you. I'll end this so we can upload and then we'll let your team know when we publish and get everything going.
Have a wonderful day.
All right, Nedra, thanks. You too.
Bye.
Well, friends, thanks for joining us on this drive. That again is Nedra Glover Tawwab. You can find her at Instagram at Nedra, Nedra Tawwab, Tawwab. This new book again that we discussed, our muse for today is Consider This, Reflections for Finding Peace. It just came out. Again, I'm using it kind of like a daily devotional. Got a question, comment for myself, for Nedra? Just go to kevinmiller.co and we can connect there. Until next time, I hope this episode helps you drive further and most of all, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.